Where should the presumed number one pick in the NFL draft be going in your FFPC Never Too Early drafts? Who stands to be the biggest beneficiary in San Francisco in the wake of George Kittle's injury? And which running back needs to be going off the board in 2026 FFPC drafts early? Plus the 2025 FFPC Main Event $200,000 runner-up Walid Makbul rejoins the show to discuss Jaden Higgins, Ramondre Stevenson, and so much more. We've got a great show for you. Walid Makbul is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your host, Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Farelliacs tuning in tonight or streaming live, downloading, listening, watching it later, whatever it may be. We're just glad to have you. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight on the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented to you by MyFFPC.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. My name is Eric Balkman. I'm your slightly above average host. My co-host is normally the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Farrell Elliott. He is actually off this week. I'll bring in my co-host tonight here shortly. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to talk about what AFC South tight end might be in for a breakout season in 2026, how to draft the top two Arizona Cardinals in the FFPC, Arizona Cardinals wide receivers, I should say, in the FFPC Never Too Early attorneys, and Walid Makbul will share his Week 17 sweat as he came just close, just short, I should say, of $1 million payday. He's also going to give his take on Chris Olave in 2026 drafts this season and much more. If you want to connect with us on X, please do so at HSFF Hour. I'm at Eric Balkman, EricBalkman. You can see it right down here on the screen. There you go. You can always check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFSC.com. Listen, you can also post on our Facebook page, facebook.com/HSFF Hour. Email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them in. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and emails in our fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and of course, our producer and mutual friend Rob. Well, we've done it. It is January 23rd at the FFPC, and we have not two, not three, but four tournaments going on right now. The FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament is live. You can enter for $125 and be eligible for a $40,000 grand prize. Remember, those tournaments cut off that and the FFPC Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament, which you can join for $35 and still win 10 grand in. Those tournaments will stop on April 23rd once the NFL draft gets going. So it is going to be a lot of fun. It's already been a lot of fun with I think we got 8 or 9 of them off and running already. And it's been a lot of fun seeing how the players are falling in to the ADP right now and that. We'll get into that tonight with tonight's co-host as well. The FFPC Big Gorilla is back for a second straight year. It also has $1 million grand prize. You can enter for $350. The 7 Bananas promo is live. If you keep randomly getting that 7 pick multiple times in a row, we're going to keep giving you free leagues. We'll start off with a best ball tournament entry. We'll go to a main event entry, a high society entry. And of course, if you get it 5 times in a row, you're going to be eligible for that FFPC free jungle safari for 4 or 50 grand, whichever you prefer. The early Rampage tournament is going on right now too. Once again, that is for the early adopters of the FFPC Big Gorilla this year. So if you are entering the Big Gorilla right now, you are basically entering 2 tournaments. The big one where you can win $1 million and the early Rampage tournament. You're automatically entered into that with a $25,000 grand prize. And for the first time ever, the FFPC Baby Gorilla, the Big Gorilla's little brother, $125 entry, a $100,000 grand prize. We've already filled multiple leagues in that. So that's going to be a lot of fun this year as well. Managed league, Weekly waivers, just like the Big Gorilla, just at a smaller price point on that, but still a six-figure grand prize. You register for those at myffpc.com. Don't forget about the FFPC Dynasty Orphans and Empire Dynasty Orphans are available at myffpc.com. Those entry fees range from $77 all the way up to $5,000, but you can get many of those leagues, many of those teams, beg your pardon, at a discount right now. So check that out, myffpc.com. Perfect place if you want to go and play fantasy football year round. It is where to go. myffpc.com. James Hicks popping in tonight. Good evening, Farrell, Balky, and the Oinkers. Just one Oinker tonight. Oinker Senior and Farrell have the night off. Rubio saying that the ice storm got Farrell. I don't think that's the case. I do believe, and he told me, and I forgot, I believe he's traveling this week, so he won't be joining us, which is okay because we have more than an ample replacement tonight. And I'm going to bring him in tonight. It's our guest co-host for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. He is a champion of a dozen FFPC leagues in his career. You might remember him from his August 2025 appearance on this show when he was coming off the heels of his first ever FFPC Pros versus Joes appearance. Since he's done that show, he came just short of the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event, finishing in second, taking home a cool $200,000 for his efforts. He's here tonight to share that story and so much more. Please welcome back onto the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, Mr. Walid Makbul. Walid, good evening. How are you, man? Hold on. You're coming through a little. I'm getting a weird whirring sound, and I'm not getting any audio from you. We will try to figure this out, Walid. We're always this is what it's all about here tonight, and every night on this. We have to somehow beat technology. Now, Lead was on this show in August, and it was fine. We had no problems with it. Might be a slightly different setup tonight, which is why we're dealing with this now. Tom Smith in the chat room right now. Is the new Baby Gorilla points no head-to-head? No, it is still head-to-head. It's basically the exact same thing as the Big Gorilla. The only difference with the Baby Gorilla is it's not $1 million grand prize. It's a $100,000 grand prize, $125 entry as opposed to the $350 entry. We don't have the early Rampage or the 7 Bananas promos for the Baby Gorilla either. And obviously the whole prize structure is different because you're only having $125 as opposed to a $350 entry fee. But still head-to-head, it is a managed format, not best ball. So you can check that out there. We're going to go back to Walid and see if we got him. Walid, do I got you now?
I sure hope so. Can you hear me?
Beautiful. Right. Coming through just great. Good evening and welcome, sir. What a whirlwind ride it's been for you. You do Pros versus Joes last July. Finished, I think, top third roughly in that competition. But I'm burying the lead here. $200,000 came home to you for being the runner-up in the FFPC main event, a draft that you had done about 2 weeks before you came onto this podcast. What was that championship sprint like for you, specifically watching the Week 17 action? Quite frankly, I don't know how this unfolded for you. I know you had a massive first week in the sprint, but tell us about what that 3 weeks was like for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, they call it a sprint, right? But it feels more like a 400 where, you're kind of going through, lap after lap. And I got off to a hot start, really the best scoring week I've ever had in any format ever. I believe I dropped like 260 points.
Yep.
With the help of Kyle Pitts, Trey McBride, so little dual tight end action there. Plugging in Trevor Lawrence over Jackson Dart, which, I mean, believe it or not, at a certain point that was a real decision to be made. So, I mean, that hour of like football from like 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock week 15 was like an absolute fever dream where I was just like, I'm watching with my good friend and my wife, and I'm just like, oh, it sure would be cool if Nico Collins catches a touchdown, boom, 70 yards. Well, how about Trevor Lawrence runs for one? Boom. So everything just kept happening. And then before you know it, it's like, okay, wait, I'm actually in first place. Am I peaking too early? And then was able to hold off the following week. Had a formidable, I think, like 170 points. So I knew going into that final week, I'd have a chance to at least finish top 3. I mean, Monday night, so Sunday going into that week 17, it was definitely, you start really feeling it, right? Because now it's like, okay, it's here. Like, I don't want to lose this thing, but it's not mine to begin with. And Saturday night really started thinking, okay, do I consider plugging in Luther Burden over Jalen Waddle here? Which, with Roma Dunze out, Luther Burden was like my highest drafted best ball player. So I had a lot of faith in just the player profile, the talent, but it hadn't turned into anything right at this point. And once you're in week 17, there's this like weird feeling of, well, I don't want to regret not doing something that, I want to play to win. I want to play to win. And I'd say it's the most important starts that I ever made, because Jalen Waddle ended up with less than a point and Luther Burden had close to 28. So that was, I was riding a high at that point. Foo Fighters, who I know you had on about 2 weeks ago after they won, which it's pretty cool to see. It was like an uncle and a nephew, and they had 5 teams together, and somehow 2 of the top 3 teams were theirs, which is unbelievable. I knew after Sunday night, like, because they had that 49ers stack that they had that place. But going into Monday night, I'm thinking, okay, there's some Puka and Bijan teams, but they need like 40, 50 points. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but surely enough, Monday night turned into a nightmare. Bijan just ripping off 95-yard touchdown runs. So all the way down to the end, but was able to hold off. And second, it's not first, but it's not third either. So I'll take it.
Right. Well, what was that? I mean, it's kind of an interesting feeling, right? Because you're gunning for that million. You were at one point in the sprint in first place overall, and then you have to settle for $200,000. I mean, it sucks that you didn't win the million, but what is that feeling like of like, oh God, I didn't get that, but I still just won $200,000?
Well, to flip it around, I feel as though whatever feeling that I could have had there, the Monday night game certainly whipped it back into me, because I'm looking at it like I could fall to 4th or 5th place. I will take second in a heartbeat. And I felt that way. I wouldn't admit it. Like, when you're there, you're like, I want first, I want to win. But you look at it's a top heavy prize pool. And going into it, I'm like, if I finish top 3, like that's a hell of a season. I'm going to be elated about it. And hey, at least it gives me something to aim for next year. Right. So no, I'm not going to complain. It was, a true like fever dream experience. And I feel very beyond blessed to have finished second.
Yeah, well, congrats on that. That is a monumental achievement, no question, especially in this field with, the teams that you had to go up against. I mentioned it at the top of the show. You drafted this particular team that took second overall roughly about 2 weeks before you came on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour last year. Do you remember how you felt about this runner-up team immediately after you drafted it? Did you feel like you were in a really good spot with it? Did you feel like this was going to be a contender, or did you hate it? I mean, a lot of times that the teams that always turn out best are the ones we don't like right after we draft them.
It's so weird. Anytime I draft any main event or like FFPC, like managed team, I feel like I almost don't feel anything after, right? There's always a few things here or there where you're like, I wish, Puka would have fell to me, or something shakes out a different way. But then I do remember feeling, I was targeting some of these rookie receivers, and I was able to get them later in the draft. So that always kind of felt good. But like Jalen Waddle was my 6th round pick. That wasn't a guy that I necessarily been targeting, but it just felt like, I really wanted Olave looking at the draft board there, right? He was one of my higher drafted players. So I kind of settled there. RJ Harvey was a guy that kind of grew on me early on. I think he was going a little higher, maybe before the J.K. Dobbins signing. And so he kind of fell into a spot where that was okay. But I certainly love Trey McBride in the 1st round, and Nico Collins. And then JSN and James Cook, who obviously ended up being massive for my team were guys that I was really in on best ball, and I was above weight on them. But once you're like through the thick of like the summer and there's so much, you're almost like you don't even know what to think anymore of certain player takes that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like on one end, it's like, well, I feel good about this, but then it's like, well, should I have taken Kenneth Walker over James Cook? Like I like both guys. So ended up, feeling pretty, I'd say level-headed, nothing too crazy.
So this was just, at what point during the season did you think like, oh, wow, I might have stumbled on something, like this is a really good team? What did it take till the league playoffs? We're closing in on the league playoffs, because obviously you had to know that this team was good enough to win your league. But as far as, finishing at the top end of the championship round, at what point did you realize that was a possibility?
I'd say so week one was a terrible week for this team, which is funny, right? It's like, out of all, I think it was my worst team week one. But I'd say like a couple weeks into the season, as things are taking form, like Trey McBride's being Trey McBride, JSN and James Cook are having these seasons. You're starting to see the top half of the roster, and then Rico Dowdle comes in. It's like, okay, he's giving me some good weeks. And Nico, who he was, he had a concussion kind of halfway through the season, wasn't really performing to his peak. That felt like a little ace in the hole where I was like, okay, like my team hasn't reached its top form, along with some of the rookies. So I think like halfway through the season, and the team did really well. It was like 11-1. So I at that point, I'm like, I know this team is going to be in the championship rounds. But I certainly, it's one of those things where you're like, I like it. And I like that I do have a player or two that may be a little under leveraged in the ship rounds.
The portion of the interview that I want to get into now is sort of player evaluations for 2026. And I'm making this easy for you here. Number one, what hat are you wearing tonight? You wore a Commander's hat last time you're on. What do we got here tonight? This is the Minnesota North Stars. My God, hockey making an appearance onto the program tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Did not have that on my bingo card. You're a Commanders guy though for the NFL. Jaden Daniels, rough sophomore season for him. Wasn't all on him. Obviously he got hurt. I would say before he got hurt, he wasn't really playing to the peak of the powers level that we saw from him in 2024. But now he's coming off a bad year. He's coming off an injured year. And sometimes that's the right time to pounce on these players. Jaden Daniels right now in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. ADP is quarterback 6 going in the mid-5th round. Shout out to Fantasy Mojo at Fantasy Mojo on Twitter. FantasyMojo.com. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes competition. Anytime we cite these types of data on the show, it's all attributed to FantasyMojo.com. If you play in the FFPC, highly recommend you get a membership there. Jaden Daniels, what do you make of him in the mid-5th, quarterback 6? Is that a steal right now, Walid?
It's going to come down to health, truly. I think he is the rare mobile quarterback that has very high end passing upside, which you can put, maybe not the same touchdown equity as like Josh Allen, right, inside the 5, but he's an explosive runner. He's an accurate passer. Terry McLaurin, if he's healthy and he's there and they can maybe add another weapon, I do think you're getting like that. That's not a player I'm going to shy away from at QB6, especially considering, I have no reason to. I have no doubt that his talent level is what you're looking for in a franchise quarterback, let alone for fantasy, where that rushing is just it adds to the floor. But in order to really hit those monster ceilings, like you do need to be able to throw for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns.
The other thing too is going off at quarterback 3 last year in draft. So there is something to be said about buying into a proven player coming off a bad year. Now, for me personally, I'm fine with him at that point, depending upon what I do with my first 4 picks. You look at Jaden Daniels in the 5th round, and if I already have a couple of receivers and a running back, maybe a tight end, I'd look at quarterback there. He's basically going right next to Jalen Hurts. There's about a half round drop from Joe Burrow to Hurts and Daniels, and then you have a full round to Jackson Dart, who's currently the quarterback 7 right now. So I think for me, I'll probably wait on quarterback a little bit longer, but I'm definitely not adverse to drafting Jaden Daniels there. I want to go to Houston here and ask you about another Jaden here, not Daniels, but Higgins. the sophomore, soon-to-be sophomore receiver from Houston. Their season is over. A lot of moving parts in Houston right now. It sounds, Lead, that we're going to get Nick Caley back as offensive coordinator. CJ Stroud is still there, but he opened up a couple of cans of worms as opposed to cans of whoop ass in the playoffs because we don't know what to think about this guy. Fumbling 5 times in the wild card round, throwing 4 interceptions in the divisional round's first half, which is absolutely insane to me. You have Tank Dell potentially coming back. D'Amico Ryans was talking about that in his end of season press conference, that he's excited for him to come back in 2026. We don't know if Christian Kirk is going to be on this team. Obviously, Jalen Knoll, and then Nico Collins, the target monster, is still there. So there is a lot of unknowns going on with the Houston offense right now. And one of those unknowns is Jaden Higgins. What kind of a sophomore leap or jump, if at all, do you think he is going to take in year 2? I will tell you this right now before you answer that question. In the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, wide receiver 56 in the mid-12th round behind Chris Bell, Jordan Addison, right ahead of a pair of currently now, as of right now, Packers wide receivers in Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed. So I wouldn't say people are going crazy to draft Jaden Higgins right now. What do you think Higgins' production is going to look like next season, man?
That's a good question. I think, the way this Texans offense has trended the last 2 years, between really it starts with the offensive line, right? And their inability to protect Stroud. And now it seems like we have a shell of who he was as a rookie, seeing ghosts, playing, whether he's like sped up, whether he's just making terrible decisions. That's going to ultimately impact the whole ecosystem of the offense. No running game, right? So at this point, like you said, he's a 12th round pick. The sentiment couldn't be lower. Everyone saw those 2 playoff games. It's going to even impact probably Nico Collins, right? Someone who no one's really doubting his skill set. So I really like both Higgins and Jalen Knoll. If Christian Kirk is no longer in the mix, I know that Elliott's guy, Xavier Hutchinson, he made more of an impact than I suspected. He was actually telling me, hey, watch out for this guy. And both of these rookies had a tough time getting on the field, which is something that I probably overlooked. I was thinking halfway through the season, there's no way that Hutchinson's going to be taking routes from him. But I see a lot of talent with Higgins. This offense just needs to find timing and some chemistry and pass protection. So if it's a cheap price, I think it's worth the gamble, but there's a lot that can go wrong. And we could be looking at a situation where Caley's fired halfway through the season. They're dealing with these same issues. And, even someone like Nico Collins may have a hard time paying off if that's the case.
You make a good point too. I'm trying to tell myself a story in my mind of why I should be looking at Higgins, but at the same time, it's much easier for so many more things to go wrong in Houston rather than all the things that have to go right as far as, Jaden Higgins having a breakout sophomore season. So that's something good to keep in mind as well. It could get worse for the offense for the Texans in 2026. The team that ended the Texans season this past weekend was the New England Patriots. And we're going to get some more information on their backfield in the AFC Championship game on Sunday, Lead. But how detrimental do you think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be to Trevion Henderson's fantasy prospects this coming season? And I'm going to couch it like this. Stevenson maybe not necessarily is a target for FFPC players, especially I'm looking at the Never Too Early data right now. You're looking at Trevion Henderson, running back 15, going off at that 3-4 turn right now. You have to go down to running back 36 at the 909 for Ramondre Stevenson. So you're basically looking at 6 rounds separating Henderson and Stevenson, about 21 running backs separating these two. Clearly, FFPC players are buying into Trevion Henderson, and why wouldn't you? This is the home run tournament. This is when you're swinging for home runs. You're not trying to hit doubles, singles, and hit for contact. You want to make big splash plays in this tournament because that's what can really swing you, given how many of these player values are going to change over the course of the next 6-7 months or whatever it is. Now, in regards to the Patriots running backs, does that seem right to you? Should there be 6 rounds of separation between Stevenson and Henderson? And which guy do you prefer at his ADP right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. It takes a lot for me not to get excited about a young, explosive player on a really good offense like Travion Henderson. But we have to look at the facts for what they are. Number one, like Ramondre Stevenson is a really good receiving back. He, I think, led the league in yards per reception amongst running backs, just under 11 yards. And, the only real issue with him has been fumbling, right? They trust him. He is clearly a good success rate back. Like he's going to hit the right holes. He's good inside the, money 3-5 yard line. So that's scary. That's a scary proposition for Travion Henderson when, it's really hard for two backs to pay off. Like for instance, take David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? I think that's a comparison that we can make. But Jahmyr Gibbs, first of all, I think is just a better all-around running back than Travion Henderson and a better receiver. They showed early on they would trust him, a lot more than I think the Patriots have shown that they would trust Travion Henderson. So, I think if you're giving me a 6-round discount, and last thing I'll say is, Travion Henderson to me didn't quite wow me. He had some explosive plays that, blocked well. I remember against the Buccaneers, he had some home runs, but he didn't pop out to me like someone like Quinshon Judkins did, right, as a rookie, when you're like, oh my, this guy just is creating things that aren't there, the creativity, as someone like Matt Waldman likes to describe. I think Ramondre Stevenson could be a real thorn in Henderson's side. We'll see if these ADPs get closer, but probably not. And we know how the market likes to kind of project ahead, and I get it. I think in the past I would have been all over a guy like Henderson. I was all over him this year, right? Yeah. I'd like drafting him in the 3rd, 4th round.
I think back, and Steven Yergalos is in the chat room tonight, and the inside joke between me and him is he hates Vrabel, and he says Vrabel is always looking for anybody other than Travion Henderson to go into the game for the Patriots, whether it's Terrell Jennings or was it Antonio Gibson this year got some run. Stevenson, obviously. I brought up Lawrence Maroney, Corey Dillon, John Stevens, any of these other old school Patriots running backs that Vrabel would love to put him in. And I'll say this too, in defense of Vrabel and McDaniels, Henderson's not a rookie next year. So I don't know if he gets buried like he did because he was a first-year guy. And maybe I'm making this too simplistic. Obviously, there was other reasons than him just being a rookie that he did not get the playing time that many of us, myself and you, Lead included, thought that he was going to get. I think there's probably other reasons, but as far as like him being a younger player, I mean, he's a sophomore next year. It's not a rookie anymore, and I don't think Vrabel and McDaniels punish him as much for that as they did this year, if that's the case, and that's why he wasn't playing. So there is something to like about Henderson there. He's going ahead of immediately ahead of Derrick Henry and Kenneth Walker. And Henry is obviously going to be the lead guy in Baltimore next year. Walker could be the lead guy in Seattle, or if he moves on in free agency, he'll probably be the starter wherever he ends up. So to take Henderson over both of those guys, I think is interesting. I don't know if I would do it, but certainly there are things to like about Henderson's ADP at that 3-4 turn, considering what his ceiling could be in 2026. And my God, if Stevenson ever went down, wheels up for Travion Henderson here too. Steve Yergalos right now saying that Stevenson is playing the best football he's seen him play ever. I think you alluded that to that lead regarding especially his pass catching chops this year. It's been really good. Again, we're going to get some more information on this Patriots backfield.
And we do this as a fantasy community. We like wishcast, right? And we want to believe like, hey, all of a sudden we're going to act like Ramondre Stevenson, because he had some fumble issues, like he was never good. No, he's actually a phenomenal running back. The only thing he lacks is that home run speed, but it hasn't hurt him in the way of like explosive runs, those 10 plus, chunk runs. He's been able to make some hay with that.
I think I think regardless, if these two guys come back next year together on the same team, I don't think it's really going out a limb saying that there's not going to be 6 rounds of separation between these two guys as we get deeper into drafting season. Chris Olave, you had mentioned him earlier. We should bring him up now. He is being drafted at the end of the second round as wide receiver 11. So drafted as a number 1 wide receiver in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. That is 5 rounds higher lead than where he was going last year at basically mid to late 7th round. That is an awfully steep price upgrade from 1 year. Are you willing to pay that? Are you in or out on Olave as it stands right now as a back end of the second round pick?
So I feel like this is one of the realizations I've had when it comes to the wide receiver position. We're really good at identifying who's actually a really high end, fantasy receiver. But then chaos happens every year, like team environments, target competition, injuries. So these guys will go from round 2 to round 7, right? Like Garrett Wilson might be falling all the way down the draft boards at this point. People may be fed up, even though talent-wise, we probably would agree him and Olave are similar. So you are paying up for Olave at this point. Do I think if you're fading him in round 2, like is he one of these guys that's going to potentially break the league? I don't think so. Does that mean he's a bad pick? I don't think so either, right? We still have to figure out what else are the Saints going to do this offseason. Tyler Shuck did show he was capable, but are they going to bring in other pass catchers that could potentially, add some target competition? But my mindset is, if he's going to go around guys like Ashton Genty, other running backs that I think could have that 20 point per game upside, that's where it gets hard for me to click that receiver there. But in best ball, where you're diversifying, you're going to want exposure to him. He's a great receiver, but you are kind of paying, I think, for the ceiling at that point.
I'll just say this regarding the receivers that are going the round after Olave is being selected. You have George Pickens, who goes right after him, who I'm assuming is going to be back in Dallas, either on the franchise tag or a longer-term deal. I don't know. But he is going to be the second fiddle to CeeDee Lamb. Then after that, you have Teteroa McMillan, who's been completely hit or miss all season. A lot of misses in there. He was good, but, man, he had a lot of clunkers for weeks, which maybe isn't as big of a deal in best ball. A.J. Brown after that, is he going to be in Philadelphia? I don't know. Are they going to fix their offensive coordinator problem? Hopefully, but that's far from a guarantee. And then you have, after A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, massive question mark at quarterback there. And then Ladd McConkey, who you would think is wheels up, but Trey Harris looked good at the end of last season. Oronde Gadsden really flashed. I mean, Keenan Allen's probably not going to be back, but maybe Quentin Johnston takes another step forward. Was the real Ladd McConkey what we saw at the end of the 2024 season, or was it last year? So there's some question marks there. And then you have T. Higgins going at the end of the third round, who obviously is the second in command at the wide receiver position in Cincinnati next to Jamar Chase. So there is a lot to like about Olave over all those guys, maybe fewer warts than those guys that what we're seeing there too. Okay. The conversation on Olave continues here. Steve Regalos says he was the steal of the draft this past year, but this year is over. Tom Smith, Olave should dominate in targets next year. And then Steve G, if Devon Bailey doesn't get hurt, Olave would have a lot less target share. He was eating into his fantasy production, and that's true too. And the other thing to consider regarding Olave, beg your pardon, at the end of the second round, I mentioned this on FFPC Insider Access last night when Frank Amarante from Rotoballer and Fantasy Pros is on. I said to him, Jordan Tyson, I've seen in a lot of mocks to the New Orleans Saints in the top 10. I mean, if they go after even a guy with second round draft capital this year, that might eat into Olave a little bit as well. Or maybe it helps him because it takes pressure off of them. They can't zero in on him. There's a lot of moving pieces with New Orleans. And then Tyler Shook, is he going to be able to finish? Is he going to be able to play a full season the way he finished last year? That's another question mark too. Let's move on and talk Arizona Cardinals wide receivers. This has been, I think this is going to continue to be one of the more fun / maddening topics that we want to get into with the Cardinals draft season. Right now, the ADP looks like this. Marvin Harrison, wide receiver 33, at the 702. Michael Wilson, wide receiver 41 at the 901. So basically 8 receivers are separating these guys. About 2 rounds of ADP are separating these guys. The first round pedigree guy in Harrison going higher than Michael Wilson. Another, as I always like to say, another pepper in the gumbo here. Who's the quarterback going to be? Probably not going to be Kyler Murray. Is it going to be Jacoby Brissett? Is it going to be somebody else? So, Lead, as we look at this, how do you handle these guys in the never too early tournaments at this moment where Harrison staring you in the face early in the 7th, Wilson staring you in the face early in the 9th?
Yeah, and the never too early, this is where you just take Trey McBride, right? And maybe punt off that decision until we get a little more information, because they both could be really good picks and return some value if they make the right head coach hire, they get a quarterback who's willing to spray the ball similar to Brissett. Maybe they get another, maybe, I don't know, Kyler may come back, right? Or they might go run heavy and really kind of make that their philosophy, in which case it's just going to be hard for both guys to pay off. It's funny, looking back at the Michael Wilson season last year, I think not to pivot from this, one of my biggest lessons was in looking at guys like Michael Wilson, Alec Pierce, Romeo Doubs, right? Some of these year 3 beyond receivers that it's easy for the fantasy community to kind of, we're over them, right? They didn't break out as rookies. They didn't do much their second year. They've been maybe typecasted into a vertical X role, or this is who they are. This is what they are. Right. But these players can get better. Their roles can change. All it takes is one thing, and all of a sudden, as we saw Michael Wilson, he went from being this guy that was just running downfield routes to running choice routes, option routes in the slot with Brissett. And I don't think I had factored that as a realistic possibility. It did take a Marvin Harrison Jr. injury and a Kyler Murray injury, but at this point, I don't know what the theoretical ceiling is, and I'm not ready to give up on Marvin Harrison Jr. either. His price is good at this point, right? Like now everyone's kind of given up. He's a round 7 player, and he dealt with injuries. I still think all in all, he will be a good pro. He'll be someone that you can count on to maybe get 1,000 yards. Like, he may not be that superstar that we thought he would be, but I'm not going to write him off yet. So anyway, to answer your question between these two guys, I still really need to figure out who's going to be this coach, who's going to be this quarterback. And I think that'll help. And then also the training camp buzz, right? Like, how's it looking between both of these guys?
I think me personally, I am more likely to draft Harrison at his ADP than Wilson. I think Wilson's okay, but and maybe I just have the red and white colored goggles on with Marvin Harrison, right? Because I just think of the draft capital. I think about a lot of people talking about how upset they were with how Drew Petzing was utilizing Harrison, that all this wasn't on Harrison. I think Harrison was inside his own head last year too. I was at a Thursday night game. He had that beautiful touchdown in the corner of the end zone, and you could just tell it seemed like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Like, he felt like, okay, I can still do this. And then if I remember, like a couple of drives later, he dropped another big play. So it's one of those things where he's just got to put it all together. And I think it's there. And maybe the right OC, maybe the right quarterback will be able to do that for him. I'm willing to take a risk on him there because there is a lot of range of outcomes of Harrison.
Yeah.
Wilson, I think, is a little like, I'm excited about how he ended last season. I don't know how replicable that is. Maybe it is. I don't know. And certainly the 2 rounds of extra value you're getting there, what could be Arizona's wide receiver 1. Yeah, I get it. I'm just buying into the pedigree a little bit more with Harrison.
I think I'm with you too. And obviously we all kind of know the Cardinals were on cruise control and garbage time. A lot of their pass volume came in the fourth quarter. A lot of Michael Wilson's production, like that's an outlier sort of season. Even if they're really bad next year, it may not break in that sort of way. So I think if we look ahead, I see a scenario where both of them could be solid. I see a scenario where both of them could be But if I was to say who's going to really hammer home like that upside potential, I'm with you there. I think it would be MHJ.
It's just, you mentioned how much they were just throwing the second half of the season. And a lot of Michael Wilson's production came in those games where Arizona everybody knew what they were going to be doing. They had to come back somehow, and it wasn't going to be running with the football with their fifth string running back or whatever it was in those games. So it could be a little bit different. We'll see on how that goes going forward. But yeah, right now, if you got to make a decision, I think both these guys are fine at their current ADP.
And credit to him. He did. Look, we could say all we want about the garbage time, but he had multiple 30-plus games. And garbage time or not, you can't just cruise to that. You got to have some talent in order to deliver those sort of performances.
You do. Yeah. Yeah, it's not just you're right. I mean, it's not just all like, hey, they're playing 15 yards off. He's just collecting all these catches and yardage. No, there was, and we did see some highlight reel plays from Michael Wilson last year as well. So, and Harrison, quite frankly. This is going to be very compelling, especially once they get a quarterback, once they get a head coach too, and then once they get an offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens there. One team that it will not be looking for a head coach, at least to my knowledge, is going to be the Chicago Bears. What an end of the season it was for Caleb Williams, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, DJ Moore to a certain degree, DeAndre Swift. I want to focus in on Luther Burden here. He is currently going as wide receiver. Oh, he fell again. Wide receiver 25 he is going at right now. ADP of 505. So was like an early fifth round pick, slipped to more of a mid fifth round pick right now. Do you think when it's all said and done in the 2026 season, are we going to look back on Luther Burden being worth that level of ADP, being worth drafting as a low end wide receiver too?
So, I was a Burden truther going into the last season. As I said, he was my highest drafted player in best ball. I'd say this one has a wide range of outcomes. Efficiency and just upside, like what he showed, is exactly the kind of receiver that we want to almost be aggressive on. But there's a lot of things that are up in the air, including like what's going to happen with DJ Moore, right? As great as Caleb Williams was, off script, can he improve on script in timing? Can they build better just rapport? I know there are times that Luther Burden might not have been lined up right or in the right place in the right. Is Ben Johnson? Are we going to get buzz and OTA about Luther Burden learning multiple positions and he's sharper than ever? Like that's the kind of coach speak I want to hear going into the offseason. I do feel good about the upside, but Colston Loveland, I mean, what a baller. He looks like at least that's the player in Chicago that I feel the safest about drafting. So, round 5, I get it. You got to take some swings. Are there going to be safer players for you in round 5? I think so. But as we get more information, as potentially DJ Moore is gone, that opens things up. And I do want to hear more just buzz from Ben Johnson, even OTAs. I know they're not that big of a deal, but these are the kind of things I am looking for, like a player heading into year 2, a player that we know has a lot of potential, but perhaps had some hiccups with just grasping the offense, sometimes effort levels, being at the right place at the right time. And then same with Caleb Williams, because as phenomenal as he was with some of these highlight plays, in order for us to get these high-end kind of fantasy seasons, we're going to need a higher completion percentage. We're going to need just better quick game and timing and things like that.
Which I do think he's going to naturally improve on. There's a lot of people, especially in Northeast Wisconsin, where I'm at, ripping Caleb Williams, right? This guy, I mean, like he makes some of the most boneheaded plays. Well, yeah, and maybe he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that just has, makes boneheaded plays from time to time. I remember a Hall of Fame quarterback that won 3 MVPs who played in Green Bay that would make some of the most boneheaded plays at the worst times of the game. And it seemed to turn out okay for Brett Favre in his career. I think Caleb Williams is going to end up being a more disciplined quarterback than Favre. I think some of this, the easy stuff that he's missing right now, I just think that naturally is going to come to him, and he's going to be a really, really good quarterback, especially with what I've seen from this year. Now, I'll also say this too. The Bears made some sort of deal with the devil this season to have 8 fourth quarter comebacks or whatever it was. all these things that had to go right. He's not going to be Mr. Magic every single season. And I think there is a regression in the mean coming there. But I do think there's some things that went wrong for Caleb Williams that aren't going to go all wrong for him again next year. I'm very excited.
And look, and it's very realistic that the Bears could miss the playoffs next year in a tough NFC North, but Caleb takes a significant step. Luther Burden and Colson Loveland take significant steps. And we want that offense, right? We want these young ascending talents in those offenses, despite, maybe the team not being as successful.
It's funny, just wrapping up the point with Burden. I just went and looked at the ADP. You mentioned about the safer plays that might be there instead of Burden. If you look at where he's going at the 505, here are the 4 wide receivers immediately going after him: Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, Terry McLaurin. All 4 veterans, all 4 guys that, I mean, with the exception of maybe Metcalf, probably their best football is behind him, maybe Sutton as well. But those would be guys that are maybe don't have the ceiling of Burden, but definitely safer plays. I guess Evans is a little bit different. I think he goes back to Tampa, but there's a real chance he doesn't come back at all. I think we would have heard something by now. But certainly there's a non-zero chance of that.
He could be a Buffalo.
Exciting. Yeah. My God. It would be insane, right? I heard who was it Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros, or maybe it was Theo Greminger. One of the two was talking about the Bills signing Mike Evans and then drafting Mekhi Lemon out of USC. And then all of a sudden, Brandon Beane has fixed his wide receiver problem, looks like a genius. And McDermott, a lot of the pundits will say, oh, they were right all along. I guess it was McDermott.
Scapegoat.
No, he was the scapegoat. No, they have Mike Evans now. They have Mekhi Lemon now. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, but with those players you named, they are kind of that veteran profile. They're not the unsexy picks, but these sort of decisions to me really can come down to roster construction, right? If you feel like before that 5th round pick, you've taken some aggressive swings, and maybe you do take the veteran and the player that you feel better. But this is very early drafts. We're going to get more information on where these rosters shake out, and also just the buzz behind some of these players.
I want to wrap up your interview portion before we kind of wax poetic on some of the news going around the NFL. Is there one player as it stands right now, January 23rd, 2026 right now, Walid, is there one player that you would be looking to get on a bunch of your FFPC teams this year, and then another player that you're going to be staying far away from?
So here's my question for you. Where is Brock Bowers going right now?
He is one of 2 tight ends going in the first round of the Never Too Early tournament. Trey McBride is tight end 1 at 106. Brock Bowers is tight end 2 at 111.
Yeah, so, the Raiders are an interesting team because I think, last year they were toxic waste. Pete Carroll and his son running that offensive line, one of the worst units in the league, absolutely abysmal to watch. If they can improve that unit, just to be a little below average, I think both Genty and Bowers are going to be players in that 1-2 second round. I don't know. Genty may even fall further. That I see massive upside, especially if they don't invest heavily in another receiver, and whether it's Mendoza starting, Geno Smith starting, just quarterbacks that can get their playmakers the ball. So those are early guys, but I think. I'm not shying away from them. I think their situation can only improve, and I really like the talent.
I'm with you on that. In regards just to the Raiders offense in general. I do think I like their GM. I've mentioned this on the show numerous times. People are probably going to get sick of me saying it, but I played high school football in a game against John Spytek back when I was a junior corner in high school. I think he's a smart guy. He's from Wisconsin. He obviously has to be smart. At least that's the company line I'm towing, or the state line I'm towing. And then Tom Brady, who knows a thing or two about winning, is also making a lot of the decisions there right now too. I think they get the head coach right this year. I think they get the OC right, and as long as they take Mendoza, they get the first pick right as well. So I think it's going to get a lot better for the Raiders this season. Who are you down on this year?
Oof. I haven't really thought much on that.
As it stands right now, throw ADP out the window, just based on what you saw in 2025, right? A player that you're like, oh God, this is a player I do not want to be in business with anymore in fantasy, with at least for this upcoming season.
Yeah. I will say, you had mentioned DK Metcalf, right? I think if that quarterback situation, I think if he hovers around that round 4, round 5 pick because he doesn't have much target competition, he's one of those veterans that I think I know what I'm getting, and I'm not like eager to go and draft him. Josh Jacobs, phenomenal running back. I know that's your guy. He is just someone who, as he gets older, as I think this Green Bay offense opens the playbook up more for Jordan Love. And quite frankly, I think they do want to get another guy in there. I think his upside, and he may be going way later now, right? Like,
I wouldn't say way later. He's still being drafted as a starting running back 12 right now at the 306, which to your point, we saw him rotating a lot. And I know he was hurt down the stretch, but even before that, we saw Emmanuel Wilson working in there more. And we saw Chris Brooks. I mean, this was a thing that went back to 2024 where game was on the line. Jordan Love leading what needed to be a winning touchdown or a field goal drive. Oftentimes it was Chris Brooks in there and not Josh Jacobs. So to want to sink a mid-third round pick with a guy who's had as much mileage as he's had, that did deal with some injuries at the end of this season. Yeah, I get it. You could get Bucky Irving after him. You can get Breece Hall after him. We mentioned Trevion Henderson. All these guys are much younger, maybe much more exciting at this point. And Josh Jacobs never really was a big-time game breaker anyway.
Yeah, and I think he's a phenomenal running back, right? Like, great vision, runs so damn hard. But the thing here is Matt LaFleur, there's continuity, right? So, like, with Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, like, there isn't that, like, fresh coach that's going to come in and say, actually, let's give Josh Jacobs 80% of the work. Like, I think they like what they have. They want to keep him fresh. They'll probably get another running back in there if Marshawn Lloyd can't stay healthy. I know that's my guy there. And I think at that price, I'm just, like, not afraid of it, right? It's a good running back, but I don't see him burning me at its round 3 price.
Especially with best ball too, if you want to build with running backs early that are going to get the volume, certainly Josh Jacobs makes a lot of sense in the mid-third round. But I totally get why people might be down on him this year and might want to stay away from him. We said back when he signed that deal, it was a 4-year contract, but it was basically a 2-year contract. The Packers could get out of it pretty easily after the second year. I have heard nothing that they want to do that. I've heard nothing to the contrary that he's going to be back in Green Bay this season. So obviously a non-zero chance of anything, but I think he's going to be back in Green Bay and he's going to be at worst the 1A, but probably just the one in Green Bay. Okay. I have to ask you this, $200,000, man. What are you doing with the cash? What are we spending the money on, Lead?
Got to pay the energy bill first, right? Like, but no, honestly, haven't really thought too much of it. Stored it away in the savings. I know that sounds pretty lame,
hey,
but
your money, man. I whatever you want to do. I was just curious. Did you splurge on anything?
My wife and I, we took a little trip to New York City.
Nice.
I'd say we've been a little liberal with maybe some of our date nights and things like that. But generally speaking, I'm still coming for that million. So, job's not finished. Second place was great, but I'm already ready to get back in these main event drafts this coming summer.
Walid Makbul not done yet with the FFPC main event, which is good to hear. We're running out of time here. I want to hit on as much of this stuff that we can. Ryan Talbot spoke on Monday mornings with Mitch, with Dawson Knox, said that Dalton Kincaid played the entire season with a torn PCL. 253 routes run for Kincaid this year, 368 offensive snaps. That was a career low for him. He averaged 2.7 yards per route run. But I mean, I guess I'm viewing Kincaid in a little bit different of a light, because I just assume that maybe this guy's a bust, maybe he's just not that good. But if you play the entire season, dude, on a PCL, on a torn PCL, that's not easy to do. And it certainly explains away maybe his lacking and his, why we were disappointed in his production. I'm starting to think that Kincaid is not a player I want to draft maybe as my tight end one. But if I wait on tight end, he could be a nice little pairing with somebody else, given that, and I'll bring up the ADP right now for you, Lead. Dalton Kincaid currently going as tight end 13 in the mid-90s in a tight end premium format. Play the whole year in a PCL. I'm starting to like him.
He showed me something this year. I mean, early on, he was scoring a lot of touchdowns, but I mean, look, even when games on the line in the playoffs and they don't have that isolated X receiver, they isolated him and they went to him and he won and scored a touchdown. I think he's a really good tight end. I do think that injuries have slowed him down, not just this year. So if that's something that's concerning to people, I get it. But tight end 13, sometimes we get the fantasy community is hard on guys because they've let us down and he was a round one pick. Now, we're also going to get a new head coach here. So, and maybe a new offensive coordinator. And I don't know Dawson Knox's contract situation, but they seem to like the 3 tight end set. So maybe they bring him back. But who's to say that next year Kincaid's not breaking that threshold, 75, 80% routes run. And if he is with Josh Allen, and even if they get Mike Evans, but he's a number 2 receiver, I think he's shown enough that he warrants some swings, especially if he's going that late.
And I just thought of this now. Brandon Beane getting a lot of grief for the wide receiver room looking so bad. I wonder if part of the reason he didn't go out and sign somebody, a big name or trade for a big name was because he expected more from Dalton Kincaid, and then he tears his PCL, and all of a sudden, we're behind the 8 ball with the Bills offense. Maybe there's something to be said for that. Maybe it's a Dalton Kincaid breakout season coming in 2026.
I mean, he had just under 15 yards of reception. He was explosive. So, he wasn't just an underneath check down guy. He was making big plays.
The big story this week, Fernando Mendoza, the guy who won the Heisman, led the first 16-0 team to the national championship in college football history, made an incredible play to, I wouldn't say seal the game, but definitely the game-winning play with that run. Now could be the first overall pick in the draft. Looks like he will be. In the Never Too Early tournament, we are 21 quarterbacks deep. He has not been drafted yet. He's obviously being drafted outside the top 20 quarterbacks. What do you think? And throw out Bowers and Genty and all those other guys. So let's just look at Mendoza's production year one. Number one, how good do you think he's going to be? And number 2, is this guy a fantasy viable backup in redraft leagues next year?
Yeah, potentially. I've been impressed with him, watching him play. Do I think he has special traits that really jump out? Not really, but he's accurate. He gets the ball out on time. He seems to feel pressure and work well in the pocket. He's tough. So these are sometimes the quarterbacks that we just are like, hey, man, you can run the offense, right? We saw someone like Daniel Jones enable a high-end fantasy offense. So if you're the Raiders, even with Geno Smith, I've always been a Geno Smith guy. I think you got to take the quarterback and kind of plan ahead. Do I think he's going to break fantasy Mendoza? Probably not, but can he help facilitate a pretty good offense? I could see it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Mendoza is going to be such a massive improvement over what the Raiders had this past year. Better for Bowers, better for Besh, better for Genty, better for Trey Tucker, better for whoever they draft. Maybe they draft a receiver early in the second round this year too. Something to be watching for sure. Drew Petzing, the old Arizona offensive coordinator, now the new offensive coordinator in Detroit. Colton Pouncey, who covers the Lions for the Athletic, stated that the Petzing scheme could make Sam Laporta an even bigger priority in the passing game. Petzing ran with a lot of more heavy personnel than the Lions did, and they've run a lot of 13 personnel since 2023 in Arizona. Now, I don't know that the Lions will specifically be doing that, given how good Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams are and how good I think Isaac Tesla could be. But, you think about how good Trey McBride was in Arizona. That's probably good news for Sam Laporta. Laporta's no McBride, but he's not far off. He's in the same ballpark there. Now, he had back surgery this offseason, questionable for training camp. Maybe right now we'll have to see because we haven't gotten a whole lot of information on Laporta's injury. But I will tell you this, never too early ADP, tight end 8 at the 602 seems like a pretty good spot for me if I'm waiting on tight end and I could get Laporta after the top 7 are off the board, knowing what Colton Pouncey just wrote here, kind of liking Laporta this year, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good price. There are a lot of mouths to feed. We know that, but Jared Goff and this offense could easily once again be top 3 in like passing yards. So you might just have some inconsistency, boom bust, but he's also, unlike Dalton Kincaid, going to run probably closer to like 85, 90% of the routes, and they will use him around and not just take him off the field. So yeah, tight end 8, assuming all's good with his health, seems like a good bargain to me.
The Niners season has come to an end lead, and Ricky Pearsall did not catch either one of his targets in the divisional shellacking at the hands of the Seahawks. He had 100 yards 2 different times in the first 3 weeks of the season. He's another guy that was dealing with a PCL injury and was out more than he was in, seemingly. And even when he was in, he was playing hurt. Brandon Ayuk, John Lynch said, has played his last down of football for the Niners. Juwan Jennings could also be gone. He could be testing free agency. You think about all that money that the Niners have tied up into some of their players. I don't know if they can afford to pay Juwan Jennings. George Kittle, maybe he's back week 1. Maybe he misses the first 10 games of the season. This is all shaping up. And then you think about Christian McCaffrey, who really cannot handle the workload 2 years in a row that he got this year. At least that's my interpretation of what I'm expecting for McCaffrey this coming year. This could be a big year for Ricky Pearsall. He spends off season healing that knee up, and then he could be their number 1 wide receiver next year. Quite frankly, he could be their number 1 target in the passing offense next year. Wide receiver 36 at the 704. I'm liking me some Ricky Pearsall at that price.
They'll need him to be. I was not a Ricky Pearsall guy going into this year, but when healthy, I think him and Brock Purdy showed some chemistry. He got the job done, so it's shaking out pretty well with him. We'll see what happens with Juwan Jennings, but it very well could be a situation where maybe he's like this year's Chris Olave, right? Where he can dominate targets and just be a solid like wide receiver too. But once again, off-season injuries, he's had a history of these things. But if he's up to full speed and the target competition isn't there, I'll tell you this much: I like Brock Purdy as your quarterback.
Yeah. I have to think about this here. The Niners get the 3rd place schedule next year, right? Because the Rams and the Seahawks finished ahead of them. That'll work out nicely for San Francisco as well. So again, lot of ball game left. We'll see with the reports we get on Pearsall's knee this offseason. Kittle's Achilles, obviously that's going to factor in to how Pearsall gets drafted as well. So, but as it stands right now, I remain more likely to pick him there than fade him. Let's get into some emails here, Walid, before we get out of here. Mike in Anderson, North Carolina. Hey, fellas, with some stability finally coming to the Giants, how excited should I be to draft Jackson Dart this season? Thank you, Mike in Anderson, North Carolina. Jackson Dart, I think I mentioned this earlier. He is quarterback 7 right now at the 605. Plenty of people excited to draft Dart. Would you be willing to pay that price for Dart this season?
That's a little rich for me right now. Going before Trevor Lawrence, I think.
Yep.
Because Trevor Lawrence is also a dual threat quarterback. I think set up in probably a better offensive environment, one with a play caller we trust, and with the emergence of Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers coming back, Travis Hunter. So at that price, like I almost like I'd rather pay up for Jaden Daniels. So in best balls, I'll mix guys like that in, but I wouldn't say he's a priority at QB 7. He was this year, right? Yeah. When you could get him for nothing, but.
Okay. This is an interesting one from Dennis in, is this Garfield Heights? Yeah. Dennis in Garfield Heights, Ohio. Who should I draft at 101 this season? Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs? Thank you. That is Dennis in Garfield Heights, Ohio. I'll bring this up, Lead. You can make a case for Puka Nacua or Jamar Chase there as well. But if he is decided on going as a running back, do you like Robinson or Gibbs better?
I got to go with Robinson. Gibbs is phenomenal. I think that Robinson might be you just watch this guy play and how he is prioritized in like trip sets, motioning him out. It almost feels like, at least last year, the Falcons prioritized him more as a receiver than ever before. And I don't see why you would stop doing that. Gibbs is, the most explosive running back, a lot better between the tackles than people think, but they do have a lot of pass catchers there. So, do I see Gibbs getting 100 catches? That's a harder scenario to envision, where I'm actually thinking the Falcons should just throw the ball to Bijan and give him 100 catches.
Right. I think Bijan, exactly. Yeah. I think that it's weird because both of these guys are getting new offensive coordinators this year. And one of them is getting a new head coach. I think what tips the scales for me is I don't know if David Montgomery is going to be back in Detroit. I think he will be, but I don't know for sure. If he's not, I do believe Detroit gets a guy that's going to be competent or comparable, I should say, to David Montgomery. You know what Bijan Robinson's not going to have? Tyler Algier. Algier's going to get a free agency gig somewhere else, and I don't know if Atlanta pays up or drafts a guy that's going to take the Algier role. I think this is more volume for Robinson, and that's what tips the scales in favor of Robinson for me here too, over Gibbs. Theo Greminger said he thinks his bold prediction, he goes 1,000 next year. Robinson, 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving. And to me, if we're talking about that, really difficult for me to get away from Robinson at the 101. So we'll see. Jim in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Should I assume George Pickens is going to be a Cowboy this year, or is that a presumptive approach? That is Jim in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Yeah, so, Lead, are you drafting? I mean, I know I am. I'm drafting Pickens this year based on, I believe he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy. Is that the proper way to do it? He's wide receiver 12 right now at the 212. So that's an awfully high price to pay for a guy who's probably going to be the number 2 receiver on his team. But I also understand how explosive that Dallas offense could be again this year.
I think so. And I think part of trading Micah Parsons and accruing these draft picks and maybe freeing up some of that cap space. Like now Jerry is like, okay, I got the cards. I have the ability to either franchise tag or extend him. I can, work some contracts around. It'll just be very hard for me to see the Cowboys just move on from a player that really opened up the ceiling of their offense. And I'm liking both CeeDee Lamb to bounce back and Pickens to continue doing what he was doing last year. And it's hard to see that not be on the Cowboys.
The final email we have, Lead, Charlie in Irvine, California. Hi, guys. I'm looking for sleeper tight ends in the Never Too Early tournament. Does Brenton Strange qualify for that, in your opinion? Enjoy the games on Sunday. Thank you, Charlie. So if we look at Brenton Strange's ADP in this, tight end 14, this is kind of surprising to me. Tight end 14 at the 10:03. He's going behind Kincaid. He's going behind Kittle, Ferguson, Gadsden. I don't know, man. Like from what I saw from Strange this year, he had some spike weeks. I know it's a crowded receiver room, especially if they don't move Thomas Jr. You're looking at Thomas. Travis Hunter's going to be back. Parker Washington is there. And, of course, they re-up Jacoby Myers. So maybe that's why people are keeping Brenton Strange out of the top 12. But if I wait on tight end, I think you could do worse than Strange as tight end 14.
Yeah, he's been good when he's presented the opportunity. I think really the caveat is just the target competition. I think Parker Washington showed he's a really good receiver. We know who Jacoby Myers is. If Brian Thomas can rebound, at least be comparable. But things can change. Brian Thomas Jr. could get traded. We could find out that Travis Hunter is going to play a little more cornerback. And then if he can be like that third pass catcher, then I like it. But I think I'm more into someone like Oronde Gadsden where I can see a pretty clear path of him being like the number 2 pass catcher tied to Justin Herbert and potentially like Mike McDaniel.
I want to thank you, Lee. This was so much fun. Anytime I get you on the show to chop it up, especially a year where you cash $200,000 for one of your teams in the FFPC main event. Congrats on that, dude. What a story it would be if you end up getting second in 2025 and then you win the million in 2026. That would certainly be amazing. Thank you for pitch hitting for Farrell tonight. You did a great job there. I wish you nothing but the best of luck in drafting season, and I'm sure we'll end up doing this show again very, very soon. Please enjoy your weekend as well as the conference championship games on Sunday.
Always a pleasure, Balky. And I look forward to being back on with you, and send Farrell my best as well.
You got it. Thanks, Lead. We'll see you soon. Walid Makbul, ladies and gentlemen, the runner-up in the FFPC main event last year, a $200,000 winner, a winner of 12 FFPC leagues over the course of his career. Tremendous stuff from him tonight. Really enjoyed it. I want to thank Walid. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. Now, the HSFF is going to go. We're basically giving up Fridays for the next 3 weeks. I'll be out of town the next 3 weeks. Can't remember the last time that's ever happened in my life. So for the next 3 weeks, bad news is you won't have Friday shows. Good news is you'll have Wednesday shows the next 3 weeks, and Farrell Elliott will be on all 3 of them. In fact, we'll be back this coming Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern time, with the 2025 FFPC Pros versus Joes overall champ, Rob Tomasino. He will join us on the program. Going to be a lot of fun talking with him. He had one best ball team he's ever done in his whole life, and he wins Pros versus Joes with it. Last year. Certainly a great story. In case you missed FFPC Insider Access last night on the Better Sports Network with yours truly, you can rewatch it on the FFPC socials as well as the BSN socials. Rotoballer and Fantasy Pros Frank Amarante hung out with me for 2 hours. A lot of good stuff from him. We will be back this coming Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 2 full hours with player profilers Dan Fornek. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. Join us for that. FFPC Dynasty and Empire Dynasty Orphans available now, myffpc.com. Entry fees go anywhere from $77 to $5,000. Many of those teams are discounted, so check that out at myffpc.com. We have a pair of never too early best ball tournaments going on right now at myffpc.com. $40,000 grand prize in the NTE Best Ball Tournament, a $10,000 grand prize in the Superflex Never Too Early Tournament, just $125, $35 for the entry fees in that, and you can cash in big time on these Never Too Early tournaments. And of course, don't forget about the Gorillas. We got the Big Gorilla, a $350 entry, $1 million grand prize, 7 bananas, and early Rampage promos are back. They're going off right now. Drafts start February 1st. Slow drafts are filling up right now. FFPC Baby Gorilla, a brand new contest we're offering this year. $125 entry, $100,000 grand prize. Really good stuff there. It's basically the same format as the Big Gorilla. Register now, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be this coming Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. Farrell Elliott, myself, and Rob Tomasino. For Walid Makbul, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
One other thing I wanted to bring up before we leave. I don't know when the next one will be, but if you ever see in the FFPC email, or if you are a part of the Dynasty email list, when we have these Dynasty Orphan drops, make sure you are logged in to your machine or on the app when we do these drops, because I have seen some of the teams that we hold back and we wait to get everybody in equal opportunity to pick up these orphans. We usually have them at 7 p.m. Eastern time. usually on Sunday, Sundays and Tuesdays. So I think we've done them on Thursdays before as well. So just be paying attention. We'll let you know when the next drop is via email, but certainly if you want to pick up some pretty good orphan squads, trust me, there are some good ones that we're dropping out there on the next FFPC orphan drop. If you want to check out what we have right now, myffpc.com is where to go. Just on the drop-down menu, Dynasty Orphans is on there, and you can pick up some pretty good teams as well right now. Thank you so much, everybody. By the next time we chat, we'll know who's in the Super Bowl. Going to be a lot of fun watching those games on Sunday. Enjoy it, everybody. Talk with you soon.